Okay, so we're back with the Baby Block project and we are ready to start assembling. So I'm going to do my best to make this video as quick and painless as possible and show you the basics of assembling things in Fusion 360. So we have to remember this. We are currently working with three-dimensional objects, okay? Objects that can move freely and spin around in a two-dimensional space, which is the flat space of our computer screen. So we're going to have to be using our view cube a lot during this process to see where everything is located. Spatial recognition is something that we're going to be learning throughout this course. And here's something that's really interesting. If we click on the front of this view cube, okay, I guess and we change our view style. You don't have to do this. I'm just showing you an example. What is it? Camera. Let's go orthographic. There we go. It looks like every one of our blocks right here is in one plane, meaning they're all aligned with each other because we're looking directly at them. But as we start to spin this thing and look at the three-dimensional space, you can see that they're not. They might look like it when we're on this front view here, sorry. But when we look at the side view, they're all on different planes. So this is just something that we have to keep revisiting as we start assembling these blocks together. So here's my goal today. I want to stack the M-R for Mr. next to each other, and I want to put the M and the R on top of my last name, Steinbach. So here's how I'm going to go about doing this, and you can also play around with this as well. Again, let's reference our project browser. Let's just make sure that we have an assembly up top. We have all these different components, which are each of our blocks down here. And now for assembling, we want to make sure that the top file, the assembly file, is the one that's active, not each individual file. So we want to make sure that that is clicked. So let's start with something easy. Let's start with just the M and the R for Mr. So I'm going to practice good organization here and hide everything else besides the M and the R. So I'm going to click on all these eyeball icons, so just these are moving. If I click and hold, I can move them just by themselves, but that's not how I want you to be assembling them. So I want to put this R right on this face. So here's how we do this. Remember, the assembly should be the one active. So up top here, I'm going to click on this button under the Assemble area that says Joint. Now, I always, for the scope of this course, want to click on Capture Position. It just simply saves the position that the blocks are in and allows us to more easily assemble them together. Okay? So now we have another window that popped up. Now, just because this is a beginning project, we're not going to go through all the type of joints on here. But for now, we're going to do what's called a rigid joint. So what that looks like is this. If you click on the tab that says Motion first, this first button is called Rigid. It locks components together and removes all degrees of freedom, which means our objects can technically rotate around without any of these joints, and they're kind of like floating around space. There's no gravity in Fusion right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to apply a rigid joint and tell both of these blocks to come together. But we have to pick where they're going to come together to, which point in space. So check this out. So we're going to click on rigid first. I think by default that's chosen, so I don't know if you have to check motion every time, but we'll see. Then we're going to click on position. And we're going to make sure that our mode of choosing the position is simple, which is this first icon, not any of these three. So for component 1, let's click on simple. And it doesn't matter which block you choose first, so I'm going to choose the M. Now notice I have this little icon here. It's saying, where do you want me to grab? For the sake of this project, I'm going to click on the center of that M. And now notice component 2 highlights. So we need to pick where this goes. If I click on the top right here, which would be wrong, it's going to move my block and stack it like that. Now that's artistic. I kind of like that. But for now, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to hit cancel. Okay. So joint. Here we go. Capture position. You're going to do this a lot. Let's make sure we're on rigid. We are. I want this face. I'm going to spin our view cube around. Remember, we have to utilize the view cube a lot to be have a rigid joint against that component. I'm going to spin this view cube around. Now, I like that. I don't want any gap in between them, but let's just say you wanted a gap. You could click on these arrows and hold and provide an offset if you wanted to, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to keep this offset at 0 and hit OK. Now, these blocks are locked together and they move together, which is nice. Okay. Now, I want to start assembling my last name underneath here, but I don't want these to be moving freely like this. So because the Mr. is one set of blocks that I want to stay and not move, I'm going to do what's called grounding. Okay, which means I'm going to lock it in place so it can't move. So when I start applying or assembling these other blocks to the bottom of this, they can't all float around. So to do that, all I'm going to do is hover over any one of the two of these blocks that I'm working with. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on ground. Okay, and I'm going to click capture position. You'll see a little push pin right there, which means M is locked. It's almost like it's sitting on a table. Okay, it can't move whatsoever anymore. And because R and M have a rigid joint between them, if I click and I try and move it, they both don't move. I don't have to ground the R as well because it's already joined to the M. Okay, I'm just going to show you one more block so I don't make this video super long. I'm going to do the S. So I'm going to show the S. The S can still float freely, so I can click and drag. And I want to click on Assemble, Joint, Capture Position. I want that part of the S, and I'm going to join that to the bottom of the M, right in the center. Boom. And you'll see it'll sometimes animate it as well. Now, again, you could rotate it if you want to get creative. But I'm not going to for this. I'm just going to keep it at 0 degrees of rotation and hit OK. Now I'm going to click on the house to go back to my normal view here. Now what's nice is because the S now is a rigid joint on M, since M is grounded, none of this will move. So we're just going to keep going and keep assembling these blocks together. Now, if you see that they're intersecting one another, that's okay. It's hard to click on, so just click and drag and move them out. So again, joint, capture position. Now, in this case, I don't have to necessarily click on the top of the T and the bottom of the R. I can do the side of the S if we want to. So I'm going to hover over. I'm going to click on the side of the S, hover over to the side of the T. Okay. Now, look, this might be confusing. It just brought the S there. That's not what it's actually doing. It's just the animation. So when you hit OK, it will stay in the same location. See, that's just part of the animation. Remember, because M is grounded and S and T and R are all rigid joints together, they will not move. They shouldn't move. Okay. That should get you going. I want you to completely do all of your blocks together. They don't have to be right on top of each other like this. You can get creative and kind of spin them around, make it a little bit artistic, and have some fun with it. See you next time.